So many cooks in the kitchen, so many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.
Hello and welcome to the July show of So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. My name is Dilla Barman and I'm excited about the topic today, so many berries. I have a bunch of things to tell you, but before I do, I actually want to jump right into the cooking because we're at a spot where I need to add some ingredients. Check this out. I have been cooking some berries on low to medium and look how liquefied they've become. There's a little bit of sticking, but not much in the pan. That'll clean right up when I add my marinara. I'm making a strawberry marinara, which may surprise you. Let me go ahead and I've been cooking these strawberries for about 5 minutes and I'll explain all. But for now I'm going to add the marinara because I don't want this to reduce much more. So here comes the marinara. So I'm using 2 cups of marinara. Okay, I'll put that there. Mix. We want to add other ingredients, but let me let the marinara warm up and talk for a second. So welcome. We've been doing So Many Cooks in the Kitchen for more than 3 years now. We're all Food for Life instructors, Physicians Committee Food for Life instructors. Physicians Committee is a wonderful group out of Washington, D.C., and we offer a variety of classes that are evidence-based classes to keep us healthy. And if we're concerned about conditions like diabetes or cancer, we have classes specifically to talk about what are some great techniques, some great food choices to help prevent or maybe manage or even reverse some of these conditions. So I'm in North Carolina and we have a variety of cooks today. I'm going to be making a strawberry marinara. The idea of the strawberry marinara came to me some years ago. We went strawberry picking and came home with a whole load full of wonderful organic strawberries. And we were experimenting with different things we could do with the strawberries. So eating them, of course, out of hand, dehydrating them, and then making basically strawberry pops, which were so good, freezing them. We did a lot of that. And so I did a little searching on the internet, and I found there's a pasta company I like, and it turns out that pasta company, I'm probably mispronouncing it, it's S-F-O-G-L-I-A, Svoglia, in New York City. They have a restaurant there, and the 2 chefs there invented a strawberry marinara. And I used their idea, and I made a number of changes and came up with my strawberry marinara. It doesn't sound like a reasonable combination, but it turns out to be really good. There's subtle flavors of strawberry and, of course, marinara. So before I say more, let me go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients. So I've been cooking some strawberries. I added some marinara. I'm going to add some bell pepper. I'm going to add some kale. Let the kale cook down a bit to the marinara. The kale is optional, but I encourage you to use some kale. Leafy greens. Did you know that Whole Foods Market lists something called the Aggregate Nutrient Density Index score of foods, and kale they rate 1,000 on a scale of 1,000. Now, if you can see from my camera up above, the kale's getting mixed in. So if you want to have it a little bit more traditional looking, you can add more marinara and maybe a little less kale. Okay, so here's a nice chunky sauce. And then I forgot the onions. Onions aren't critical. Onions go well with this, especially if you have a sweet onion, but I forgot the onions, so sorry about that. The last ingredient are going to be strawberries, okay, and some herbs. I'm going to add some basil, and I'm going to add some oregano, okay. But let's start with the strawberries. So I'm going to dehull the strawberries. I've dehulled all but 2. I wanted to show you 2 ways to dehull. You want to remove I think I talked about this in the last show when I made mango parfait. So if you want to remove the green and the white part, and you can tug at it, but a better way is either to use a knife like this, and you want to make a cone, and pull that out. And then you want to cut each strawberry in half or quarters. I'll do quarters. Okay, we'll toss that in. Another way to dehull is to use a dehuller. These cost like $1 or $2. And you just press in and pull out. And the hull is removed. And so I'm going to cut this in half or quarter. All the recipes, the quantities are all in your recipe handout. While I'm cooking, one of my fellow cooks in the kitchen perhaps will put the link up for our recipe document. We published this, I think, a day or 2 ago. So some of you may already have the document. Some of you may be cooking along with us, which would be great. I know in the kids show we have some people who do cook along with us. If any of you are cooking along with us, let us know. That'd be fun to hear. Okay, so there go the strawberries. This is the second batch of strawberries. The first batch is already cooked down. And I started cooking before rolling because it takes about 5 minutes to cook down. So the first batch has cooked down. All I'm doing is quartering the strawberries. It's really an easy recipe and a surprising recipe. One thing I'll say about this marinara is that generally in marinaras, we think of garlic. You can add garlic, but garlic doesn't go great with strawberries. Onion does, surprisingly. If you want to throw some garlic in for the health benefits, it'll be fine, but it tastes better. This particular marinara tastes better without garlic. The original recipe that inspired me had some vinegar. I don't like vinegar very much, and I don't like it in this sauce. Vinegar will also help the strawberries macerate a little bit. Okay, I probably added too much kale, but that's okay. All right, so let me let that cook down. The strawberries, increase the heat. You want to cook over a low to medium heat. And the low to medium heat, the strawberries will sweat, and then they'll start losing volume. You want to cook them until the strawberries cook down to about half their size. Okay. So I'm going to increase the heat just a little bit. There's a few more ingredients to add, but let me tell you more about today's show. So strawberries, wild strawberries have been around forever. The Romans talked about strawberries. But in the 1750s, they were hybridized in France. They took 2 New World species, one from North America, one from Chile, and they hybridized it in France and came up with cultivated strawberry. Strawberries are great sources of vitamin C and manganese. They're a good source of folate and potassium, and they're full of antioxidants. They're not great sources of lycopene. You may have heard of lycopene, which is a wonderful cancer-fighting compound, and a lot of foods that have red in them. Watermelon is a great source, and so are tomatoes. Of course, we have tomatoes in our dish. Those are great sources of lycopene. Strawberries are deep red, but they're not great sources of lycopene. And so in terms of lycopene, tomatoes, of course, are great sources of vitamin C, potassium, antioxidants like lycopene. And the lycopene becomes more bioavailable when you heat it. And if you want in the Q&A, we can talk a little bit about cooked versus raw foods. But one argument for, at least with tomatoes, to consider cooking them, maybe not all the time, it's great to have raw tomatoes. I often have raw tomatoes. But when you cook, when you warm tomatoes, they release more of their nutrients. So I think you'll like the strawberry marinara. When we're all done, you can serve it on top of pasta, maybe with lasagna or something like that. And you'll find the strawberry has a subtle flavor. There's a little bit of sweetness. And if you serve it to your guests, they'll say, this marinara is special, it's different. And I'll bet you many of them won't know it's strawberry. Now, if they can see pieces of strawberry, they'll say, aha. So I encourage you to try this dish and have your guests guess what's in it. I'm going to add some oregano and some basil. Now with herbs, there's different ways to prepare this. Sometimes I'm lazy and I just shred it. What you can do is you can fold this into a cigar and then slice it. That's called a chiffonette. And by the way, here's a trick. When I slice strawberries, I sometimes put paper towels on the cutting board to keep the cutting surface from getting stained, especially if I'm using a wood cutting board. So I'm going to go ahead and do some chiffonettes. You can use mezzaluna, which is a knife that's shaped like a half moon. That's what mezzaluna means. Let's get some oregano. I've rinsed all of this. I forgot to mention with the strawberries, do not rinse them until just before you're going to use them because they can have mold. If you are freezing strawberries, obviously you want to wash them and then you'll want to dry them and put them on a single layer in the, I'm sorry, that's blueberries. You want to dry them and then you can put them in bags and freeze them. But do wash them before freezing them. Okay, so here's some oregano, and I'm just going to slice through it a little bit more. All right, I love fresh herbs. These are from my garden. So in they go. Often with marinara sauces, I like black pepper or hot red pepper, but not with this dish. I don't like with the strawberry. I don't like heat, and I actually don't like the black pepper. So I'm just add a little bit of salt. It's bubbling away, and I'm poking at the strawberries a bit, and they're soft. Again, I went overboard with the kale. I like the sauce to be a little bit more red. The kale is optional, so you don't have to put the kale in. But by putting the kale in, your guests and you will say, wow, this is even more nutritious. It adds some nice contrasting colors too. And that is about it. Ideally, it should cook about 5 minutes. And the strawberries have cooked down. They have softened. I'm going to let it bubble away for a little bit longer, but what I am going to do is I'm going to sample it, see what it's like. One other comment is oftentimes if you make a marinara, you may be familiar with nutritional yeast, which some people say has a cheesy flavor. It goes great with tomato dishes. That doesn't go so well in my mind with the strawberry marinara. So a couple things to keep in mind is with the strawberry marinara, avoid garlic. Use a little bit if you'd like. Onion is fine, and avoid nutritional yeast. I just don't think the flavor combination is great. Okay? It's surprising how well the onion goes with this, and I'm sorry I forgot to get onion today. So here's a little bit of marinara. I don't have pasta here, but I'm going to just sample this as is. Let's get a tiny piece of strawberry. You are getting strawberry because the juices are all mixed in. Okay? So that's looking pretty good, some nice chunks. I'll let it cool off for a second. It's delicious. Your guests will not know there's strawberry in it, but there's something in it. There's something in it. It's not a tomato flavor, there's something else. I'm going to reduce the heat, let it simmer. The strawberries are pretty well cooked down. I'll let them cook for another few minutes. And then I'll have a wonderful marinara to serve to my family on top of pasta. So I hope you enjoyed. And if you try the strawberry marinara, please let us know. Let us know how it will come out. I can't wait to hear from you. So with that, we pass the camera to my friend Janen Orhun. She's making a raspberry peach chia pudding. Take it away, Janen.
Hello everybody, thank you Dilip. Your sauce sounds really interesting. I would have never thought of using strawberries in a marinara. I'm going to have to try that one. Welcome everybody, benvenuti to my kitchen in Calamandrana in Italy. So I've hopped and changed countries and here I am in Italy now, not in Abu Dhabi, which is almost impossible to live in the summer unless you're indoors 24/7. Our topic today is so many berries. Everyone loves berries. I eat berries every morning, especially blueberries. But for today, I chose a recipe from Dr. Greger's book called How Not to Diet. He has quite a lot of wonderful dessert options there. And I slightly changed it because his recipe, which is called mango raspberry Chia pudding. Instead of mangoes, I used peaches because at this time of the year in Italy, you can find beautiful peaches. And I'm lucky because I got this and more from my neighbor. He had just picked some peaches, so he gave them to me. I love freshly picked summer peaches, and I'm grateful for that. So instead of mango, I substituted peaches, and I used beautiful raspberries, which is the theme of our show today. These are, I think, collected at their peak. They're just perfect. This is a very easy recipe. Basically, you use 1 cup each of the 2 fruits you choose to use, which mine were peaches and raspberries. And basically, you chop the peaches. I actually used also the skin because they're from my neighbors and I know how he cultivates his fruit. So I put them all in my Ninja, 1 cup each, raspberries, peaches, and half a cup of water, and I whizzed it till it was really smooth. After which I opened the container and put my 4 tablespoons of ground chia seeds. Chia seeds. In Italy, they're called chia seeds. So I used powdered, and I think I've told this before, my husband does not like the mouthfeel of the not powdered chia seeds. And if you use powdered, it just makes a really smooth and creamy pudding for you. So first I whizzed the fruit, then I added my chia seeds, and I whizzed it again so it's nicely mixed. Now, in the book, Dr. Greger suggests that you whiz the fruit, you put them in your jars or bowls, however you like to make it, and then to add 2 tablespoons of chia seeds to each one and stir it. Well, I prefer to add it into my high-speed blender, so all of it blends nicely. It takes, for me, less time. And then you pour it into your containers. As you see, the original recipe makes 2 rather big servings. You can also use smaller jars and make more for a dinner party of 4 or 5 or 6 perhaps, or for smaller snacks. And then you refrigerate it, and the next day you enjoy it. So I had already prepared this yesterday, and this recipe does not have any natural sweeteners or anything. Often they call for dates or date paste or maple syrup or something. This is as healthy as it gets. So here I go. It's very creamy. It's amazing. And you could decorate it with more fruit if you wish. Doesn't show very well in a jar, but it looks pretty when you're close by. And adding more raspberries makes it even more delightful. I'll take just one more bite. It's beautifully sweet and a little bit tangy, a tart. So if you want something really, really sweet, I suppose you can add 1 or 2 dates into the process to make it sweeter. But as it is, it's amazing. It would make a beautiful dessert or a snack or breakfast. It's an anytime pudding, if you ask me. This is it from me this time, folks. Before I go, I would like to introduce to you my friend and colleague Susanna Dickman in Evansville, Indiana, who has another wonderful berry recipe to share with you. I think I'll still be in Italy in August, so until then, I can say ci vediamo ad agosto. See you in August. Have a wonderful rest of the month, and bye everyone.
Thanks, Jana. Your recipe looks so good. Hi, everyone. My name is Susanna Dickman, and I'm from Evansville, Indiana. You can follow me on Eat Plants Be Well on Facebook and on my website. And also join my husband Dan and I every Monday at 5:30 Central on Facebook Live, where we will cook one delicious plant-based meal for Meatless Monday Evansville. Today I'm going to make a little different kind of recipe with berries. You may have had mango salsa. We love fruit salsas at my house. So I am going to make a blueberry salsa and a strawberry salsa. And they're very similar. You could easily put them together, make it blueberry strawberry. I like doing them different because I have some family members who like strawberries better, some like blueberries better, but basically the ingredients are the same. And then as you can see, I've made 3 different kinds of chips to use to dip your salsa. And I'll talk about those briefly when I'm done making them because, you know, I have yet to find a chip that is low fat and not high in sodium. So I prefer to make my own. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to start with our blueberry salsa. I have about a cup of blueberries. You know, you can make as much or as little as you want, but these are fresh. You could use frozen. I would just make sure you rinse them and dry them really well. And when you rinse them, though, don't throw away that juice that's going to come off of them. You know, save that to add to your smoothie or just to drink. But I am going to just go ahead and cut a few of the blueberries in half, and the rest I'm going to leave whole. So just a couple, and thank goodness I had my knife sharpened this week, so it is just cutting very well. We don't want to cut them all, we just want to cut a few. I'm going to do a couple more here. 2 and 1 more. That one's a little big. But there we go. So we've got, but we want to have that crunch. The next thing I'm going to add, and you can use a variety of peppers. I want to be contrasting with the colors. So you see I have a yellow pepper to go with my red strawberries. And here I have a red pepper. You can also add a green pepper. Remember, we're just going for all these wonderful antioxidants. I have a fresh jalapeno that I have chopped. This was 1 small jalapeno that I have there. And I have some red onion. So, you know, this is truly eating the rainbow. It is so good. And then the last thing I'm going to add, I cut up some cilantro. And again, you know, some people like cilantro, some people don't. If you don't, just leave it out. But we like cilantro, so I'm going to add some of that. I'm going to make the sauce for it. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and make my strawberry one. But look at the colors. You know, we eat with our eyes and we look at these colors and they're so beautiful. So now you can see I did go ahead and cut my strawberries kind of in a dice, you know, as best I could. It's really hard to get them in uniform dices. But this is again about a cup of strawberries because I'm just making, you know, a smaller batch. I have used up to 3 cups of strawberries when I wanted a lot of salsa. And to contrast the color, I'm going to go with the yellow pepper here. Again, green would be nice too. Mixing as I go. Same ingredients, my red onion and my jalapeno. You can see, you know, when you typically make a salsa, you're adding all the same ingredients. The only difference is you're adding that berry. Okay? So I just love, again, I love the colors. And it's so refreshing. You know, I would put this over anything. Heck, sometimes I just eat it out of the bowl with a spoon. I don't even use a chip. So let's go ahead and make our dip. Oops, I'm going to add a little bit cilantro. And everything is to taste. You know, if After I put the sauce on, if I taste it and I think I need a little more cilantro, I'll go ahead and add some. Sometimes if I'm having company and I know someone doesn't like the cilantro, I will just leave it on the side in a bowl so that people can add it themselves if they want it. But for me, at least, and my family, cilantro is an essential ingredient. Okay, so I'm going to put those over there while I make our sauce. And I'm going to do that in here. So we have just a few ingredients for our sauce. And the first one is a white balsamic vinegar. You want to get the white because obviously brown, balsamic vinegar is dark and it will darken things. And so I always have a white balsamic in my fridge. And I'm going to put 2 tablespoons in here because remember, I'm doubling this recipe for both salsas. I've got some cilantro stuck to me. If I were making it just for one, I would use a tablespoon, but you'll see that in the recipe book. I have some fresh squeezed orange juice, so I did that earlier, and I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of that. And then typically you will find oil in these dressings, but I'm not going to use oil, but I want something that is going to kind of, be an emulsifier and keep the ingredients together. And so I'm using aquafaba, and most of you know 2 aquafaba is the liquid that's in a can of chickpeas or when you make chickpeas. And I'm just going to, I use that instead for salad dressings, for other things too. Maple syrup, I'm going to go with a tablespoon. I'm going to do maybe a tablespoon and a half. When I've done this before, I've used a tablespoon. Again, it's to your liking, how sweet you want it. And then I'm going to put half of a freshly squeezed lime. So let me go ahead and get that in there. Typically, you might get, I'm kind of squirting a little bit. You might get a tablespoon, maybe a tablespoon and a half of lime juice. So again, I'll taste it and decide if I need to add some more or not. And I have some other lime juice. Let me reach over here and grab my salt. I want to put a pinch of salt. Sorry about that. Now I got to dry my hands because they're a little wet from the lime juice. So anywhere up to 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit. And again, I'll taste it. And if I feel like I need more salt, I will go ahead and add some. So let me just whisk this very carefully. You can see it's really, really good. I'll taste it in a minute and see if I think I need to add something. Oh, I think it's great. It's great. And that little bit of, the little bit more of maple syrup just really made it great. So let me go ahead and I'm going to pour about half on my strawberry salsa, and then the other half, put a little bit more there on this salsa. And then let me go ahead and mix it up. And this can sit for a little bit so that all the tastes blend together. But it never lasts long in my house. And I can't tell which one I like the best. I think the yellow and the red, or the red and the blue. But I hope you try some berry salsa with your berries. Let me talk for just a minute. Move over some of this stuff and wipe off some of my place. I want to talk for just a minute about the chips, because as I mentioned before, it really is difficult to find chips So I'm going to take this container, and these chips here, these were just an organic flour tortilla. And I don't know if you can hear the crunch, but it is so good. This one has a little bit of cinnamon on it. And in order to get the cinnamon to stick, I use my old friend aquafaba. And it's just so simple. Again, I just am going to put a couple of tablespoons of aquafaba. And then this tortilla, these were flour tortillas. This tortilla are almond flour tortillas, and these are really good too. They do have a little bit more fat than the flour, but they're no oil, and they're really good, and they have a nice crunch. And then these are just your typical corn tortilla. So I buy the tortillas that are just corn and lime and salt, and I make my own. So the way I do this is I just go ahead and dip my tortillas in the bowl, and I'm just going to do a few because I want to show you. And then I'm going to take a little bit of cinnamon and pour it in there. Actually, maybe a little bit more. But I am going to go ahead, and what I like to do, and I saw somebody do this online, and it really is a great idea. I used to just cook my tortillas on the baking sheet with parchment paper, and then I had to turn them. So what I do now is I use a baking cooling rack, and I just put them on there. Okay, so let me get a little bit more. These you can see that I put a lot of cinnamon on there. So I'm going to put some more on here. But do this, and then I typically cook them at 350 to 375 for 8 to 10 minutes. You know, these are things you have to watch because you know they'll burn. But it really helps to get even browning. I don't have to flip them. They sometimes do stick a little bit, but I'll just take a knife and kind of, push it under and it comes out. So it's such a great way, and I can sprinkle. I love a lot of cinnamon. So I can go ahead and sprinkle some cinnamon on, and these are great. Now these and this one, what I did with those was I just dipped them in lime juice so that they have that kind of limey flavor. But let me go ahead. I think I'm going to have a bite of the strawberry salsa. Put a little bit on there. I think I've got everything. So good and so refreshing. I hope that you will make some berry salsa, a little bit different take on how we use berries, but enjoy and bake some chips and just enjoy. Thank you again for spending your day with us and watching us cook these delicious plant-based meals with berries. And Cody, you're next. I can't wait to see what you're going to make. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Hi, Susanna. Your salsa looks delicious. I can't wait to try that recipe. And thanks everybody for joining us. This is Cody Stubbe, and I have a special guest here with me today. Tell everybody your name.
Nora.
Nora Stubbe. So she's on the So Many Kids in the Kitchen, and she's going to be joining me today for this wonderful recipe, aren't you, Nora?
And I made it too.
Yep, she's made it before too, so it's one of your favorites, right? High five.
It's very smooth. And I'm going to tell you the ingredients. So this is silken tofu, syrup, lemon juice, lemon zest, and blackberries. The bonus of the taste, because it's really purple, even if blackberries are black.
Yep. And so what are we making today, Nora?
We are gonna make blackberry pudding.
Yeah.
My favorite.
It is one of our favorites, isn't it?
And I'm going to show you where we got it from. It's from this book. It's, so I'm marking it. It's right here. So this is what we are going to make. I'm also going to make this one, but not today.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not because I got out of it. So you can get any kind of fruit or flavor and make it into a pudding.
Yep. So there's chocolate pudding in there. There's all sorts of different berry puddings, so it's whatever you prefer. It's a very versatile recipe, and we got it out of Jane and Ann Esselstyn's Be a Plant-Based Warrior cookbook, didn't we? Because we're going to be plant-based warrior women, aren't we? Yep. So we got silken tofu, so this makes it really smooth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so should we put that in? You want to help me?
Yeah.
This is a heavy bowl, isn't it? So there's 2 containers of that. Try not to make a mess. Whoop, whoop. There goes a chunk of tofu. It's a good thing we have clean hands and clean counters, right? It's important to have clean workspaces, right? Okay. So then, what are we going to put in next? What do you think? It doesn't matter, right? Blackberries. Oh, so fun. Okay, yummy. These look good. And these, it's a beautiful color, right? And we got organic ones. Do you remember what organic means?
No.
It means when they don't use any of the pesticides or insecticides spray on it, right? Yeah.
So you can still eat them out having, like, if it has that stuff on it, then you can't eat it with the skin. You have to take it off, but it's really hot.
Oh, you have to wash it really good too, right? Should we put this in next? What's this? Lemon juice? Okay, go ahead and grab me the next one. Maple syrup. And you can put less of that. I just did the bare minimum maple syrup. Don't like a lot of really, really, really sweet things, do we, Nora?
Let's put out the syrup in.
It did. It just has a little bit left in the bowl.
Why?
It sticks to the edges a little bit. And then we got your zest. Now, you zested that yourself, didn't you? That's one of the favorite things you like to do is be my zester, huh? So getting kids involved is very important, right, Nora? At a young age, right?
Because kids can help cook.
You want to tell everybody about your show?
No.
No, well, she's got So Many Kids in the Kitchen show, right? So it's you and your older sisters, Ella and Ava. And we have Anu in North Carolina, and we have me and Max in Rhode Island. And they join us every other month, right? Yeah, we just did a Harry Potter show, and that was a lot of fun, wasn't it? All right, I'm going to go ahead and get this going here. So we're just going to smooth it, or blend it until it's nice and smooth. You want I'm just going to stir it down once, okay?
I got spoons in my pocket.
Oh, that's why you're so noisy, huh? Got some spoons in there. This is such a beautiful color. Look at this. Okay, let's do it one more time. Awesome. I think that's ready, don't you? That's really good.
And you can get anything in pudding, right? That tastes good.
Yeah, your favorite flavors. Yeah, totally.
Together, like maybe something. I don't know. But you can put.
Made quite a bit, didn't it?
Mine.
Tell me what you put in it to make it pretty.
We put in leaves in it.
We have a little, we have a mint plant in our backyard. And so sometimes it's fun just to decorate your dish. And look at that beautiful color. Isn't it good?
Yeah.
All right, cheers. Let's clink. Cheers.
I got extra spoons.
I guess you're all prepared, aren't you?
Now you will.
Mmm. That's very tasty. Can you taste the blackberry?
Yeah.
Can you taste the lemon?
Mm-hmm. It's
Very
very smooth. You should try it.
It's very smooth. So it's a great source of, plant-based protein.
And
It's
you
got
can't
antioxidants.
even taste this.
You can't taste the tofu. It just kind of takes on whatever you put with it, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it just makes it smooth.
It's very delicious. Well, good job. Thank you for helping me. It was wonderful to have you with me today, making one of our favorite puddings. All right, so now we're going to pass it on over to Nancy, and she's also going to make a pudding, but she's going to make a blueberry chocolate pudding, and she's also going to use, I think, a similar ingredient, which is really cool, and she's going to show how versatile the tofu is, isn't she? So
how's gonna use the tofu?
I think she's going to use tofu too, maybe. We'll find out when we watch her, but I think that's what she's going to use. We'll see. All right, well, take it away, Nancy. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, Cody. And I'm Nancy Manifold, and I will be showing you today how to make a really nice blueberry chocolate pudding. It's incredibly simple, but it is so good. And what we start with this, it's got very few ingredients, and what we start with is silken tofu, which is a very soft tofu. And if you saw my recipe a couple of months ago, I used silken tofu for that as well. And what the silken tofu is very good for is to make creamy foods without obviously using cream, but it's a good cream replacement because it's very bland, so it doesn't overwhelm the flavors of a dish. So here I have my tofu. It's 300 grams, and I've just cut the lid open, and you can see there's just a little bit of liquid that I'm draining off, not a great deal. It's not like firm tofu. So I've drained off a little bit of liquid, and I have my high-speed blender here. So I'm putting that in there like that. And then it's a 1/4 cup of cocoa powder. Now, cocoa powder is very healthy. It's high in protein, and it's a very good, and it also has it's a good source of iron, but it's also very high in polyphenols. And what polyphenols are an antioxidant. So quite often the colors of foods, of fruits and vegetables and plants, is down to the antioxidants. So for example, carrots, the orange beta carotene is the antioxidant in carrots. And what antioxidants do, because we do talk about them a lot, so just briefly, everything that we do, breathing, sleeping, eating, exercising, everything that we do produces something called free radicals. So anytime we're producing energy, we produce free radicals. And what these free radicals are basically unpaired electrons which desperately want to pair up in order to stabilize. So they will pair up with the first thing that they come across. Now, if that's your DNA, it can damage the DNA and cause cancer. If it's the lining of your blood vessels, it can lead to heart disease. If it's cholesterol, it activates the cholesterol to a more active form. So you get the idea. Now, what antioxidants, such as the polyphenols in cocoa powder and the blueberries I'm about to use, what they do is they also have unpaired electrons, but they are very stable because they're part of a bigger molecule. So what they do is they go around and mop up these free radicals and stabilize the free radicals so that they can't damage your cholesterol, your blood vessels, and your DNA. So thereby reducing the risk of cancer and heart disease. And that's why antioxidants such as polyphenol are so important in the diet. So that's the cocoa powder, also very high in protein, if I didn't mention that. And then for a little bit of sweetness, I have a 1/4 cup of maple syrup, because I'm Canadian, so I use maple syrup for everything. So there's a 1/4 cup of maple syrup, which might seem for a lot, but considering that this actually is for 4 desserts, that's only a tablespoon of maple syrup per dessert, which is not a great deal. considering everything else in it is so healthy. And then I have vanilla. So 1 teaspoon of vanilla, putting that in. There we go. And what I'm going to do is put that on the, I'm going to blend it in the high-speed blender. Now, I won't blend it for as long as I normally would when I make it, just because you don't want to sit and hear this going for too long, but. So I would, when I've made this recipe many times before, I tend to blend it for about a minute or so. And then, so I would blend it a little bit longer than I did there. But what you can see is this beautiful creamy consistency. And silken tofu is so fantastic for this, for any pudding. Anything where you want something creamy, but you don't want a strong flavor from it. And I'm just putting that in there, and you can see how nice and creamy it is. As I say, I would have blended it a little bit longer, ordinarily. So there we go. So you get the idea. Now that is fairly liquid. There's more in there. I will scrape that out later. And now what I'm going to add is, this is a cup of blueberries. Now I use frozen blueberries. I'm a real fan of frozen fruits and vegetables. It's less expensive. Nutritionally, it's just as good as fresh fruit and vegetables. There's less waste, and it's very easy to use. And the nice thing about using frozen blueberries is I have taken a cup of blueberries and microwaved them for about a minute just to soften them. And what it does when they're frozen and you microwave them, it creates a nice syrup with it, which I just quite like in a recipe. So I'm putting that cup of blueberries with the liquid with it into the pudding mixture. There we go. And mixing that. Blueberries, again, high in polyphenols, high in fiber, and the natural sweetness of fruit. So absolutely delicious. So there you go. And then what I will do with that is to put it in little individual pots. And this easily makes 4 nice servings. And then put it in the fridge for at least 4 hours, which I have done. I made this yesterday. And so here's one of the pots. I've decorated it with a few blueberries. And I will show you, once it's been in the fridge, it's a nice, much thicker pudding consistency. And it is unbelievably good. And the nice thing about this is you can have a delicious dessert without thinking you've had something unhealthy, because it's incredibly healthy. So thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you've enjoyed my quick summer pudding when nobody wants to spend too much time in the kitchen. So thank you for listening, and I'm going to hand you over to my friend Angelita Hughes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful segment of so many berries, especially right now where there is an abundance of them. Today I'm going to be making cranberry and blueberry muffins. You can also convert it into a coffee cake if you'd like. The only thing that's going to change is that you're going to have to bake it for about 45 to 50 minutes. So you guys have a recipe, and for sake of time, I kind of just already pre-measured everything, and I've got my dry ingredients mixed together, and I've got my wet ingredients that I'm going to mix together. But I wanted to show you guys what the unbuttered plant-based milk looks like. So I just want to say thank you to Nancy for that blueberry chocolate pudding that she made. Sorry. Yeah, so blueberry and chocolate, of course, they go so wonderful together, and chocolate, natural chocolate, is really good for you. So thank you so much for that, and I definitely will be making that one, especially with all this heat going on. That's going to be absolutely amazing. Again, my name is Angelita Alvarez Hughes. I am in Greenville, South Carolina, and the name of my company is Earth, Seeds, and Water. You can find me on TikTok, you can find me on Facebook, you can also find me on Instagram, and then my website, which is earthseedsandwater.com. And I am a Food for Life instructor, and I absolutely love that. I love being able to help people better their health by changing what they eat. So anyway, let's get started. And again, for the sake of time, I'm not baking these, but I will be posting pictures of it after this segment is over, so you guys can see what it looks like. All right, so here I have got the oat flour, I have got the all-purpose flour. I did not try it with brown rice flour or any other flour, but you can. So I would suggest that you sift it a couple of times to be able to put some air into it. And so I sifted all the dry ingredients together, and of course, because I ground the old-fashioned rolled oats in like my Ninja Bullet, there's a little bit of the fiber left over. So once I've sifted everything together, then the little pieces that are left over, I just throw that on the top. And I use this type of whisk to kind of incorporate it, so to kind of keep that air in there going. Okay, so I've got that in my big old trusty vintage Tupperware bowl. I don't know how many of you have these at home, but I love these. I think I've got one in every color. So here I've got the unsweetened applesauce and the vanilla, and I've already mixed that together. And this is the buttermilk, unbuttered milk. So this is just it. And I'm seeing, and please let me know if you found an alternative, but soy milk seems to clabber, for lack of another word, a lot better than the other ones. But if you have one, please put that in the comments, because I would love to try that. So it has to be unsweetened, unflavored. And in order to achieve that, I am using a Sicilian lemon balsamic vinegar. It's a white vinegar. I believe wherever they have flavored vinegars, you can find this. If you don't want to invest in the balsamic vinegar, again, it's going to give it an amazing flavor. Just use fresh lemon juice. If you can find the Meyer lemons, that would be even better. All right, so we've got that in here. And now I'm going to pour it into my applesauce. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want all of this to get well incorporated into the dry ingredients, and then this prevents me from having to over mix the dry ingredients. I have not forgotten the berries. I try to keep them still in their frozen state before I put them in there, because, you know, once they start thawing, there is a lot of excess liquid. If you want to thaw them first, you're more than welcome to. Just incorporate that liquid into this. You might want to measure it, weigh it on a scale, so you can reduce the amount of applesauce that you're putting in here, or you can reduce the amount of liquid that is in the plant-based milk. That way your muffins won't come out watery. All right, so now we're going to put this in here, and I'm leaving just a tiny bit of the liquid in there, and I'll show you why. Okay, and we're just going to very gently mix this, or actually kind of fold it. You don't want to over mix it, because then that's going to give you a very dense muffin. And because we added baking soda and baking powder to this, it's going to react with the lemon. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call. Okay, it's going to react with the lemon, so then that'll help it rise as well. All right, and we just want to, again, mix it just very lightly. And this is what we have. All right, so now we're going to add our berries. If you don't want to add, excuse me while I get these out. So what I'm giving you here is just a base. All right, so this is what I'm adding to this. If you don't want to add blueberries or cranberries, or let's say whatever berry you want to add or fruit, again, it's just a cup of each, or a total of 2 cups, depending on what it is that you decide to use on there. Oh, sorry, I almost forgot. So I'm adding these to just a tiny amount of batter that I left, just to incorporate them. So when I pour them in here, I won't have everything down at the bottom of the muffin. All right, so there we go. Try to mix it in very little as you possibly can, so then that way the batter will still have some color to it. If not, everything is going to turn blue. And then we're just using a 1/4 cup, I'm using an ice cream scoop, or you can use just a 1/4 cup measurement. If you want to make them bigger, then, you know, feel free to do that. Again, if you're going to do a coffee cake with it, then just pour everything in I use an 8x8, and then I just put some additional old-fashioned rolled oats on the top, and I mix them with just a little bit of applesauce, so I wouldn't have to use any oil, and it comes out great that way. So what I'm using is these liners right here. They're silicone, and I've sprayed them very, very lightly just to make sure that they don't stick. And that's just how we're filling them. Just to the top, not overflowing, because remember, they're going to rise. And you just fill them all. If you want to use disposable liners, you're more than welcome to. It's just, I just rather have these reusable ones. This is something great that you can get your children to do. Perfect for brunch. They taste wonderful cold, or you can eat them as soon as they get just a little bit warm. Make sure you don't burn yourself. If you don't want to use raw sugar like the recipe calls for, you're more than welcome to use maple syrup or date syrup. Again, you're going to want to weigh it when you're baking. It's really good to use precise measurements, and if you're going to switch something out, make sure that you weigh what you're switching out with. That way it won't change your recipe or how it's going to turn out. All right, so that gives me 12. And there we go. So then you just put these in your oven at 350 for about 30-35 minutes, just depending on your oven. Everyone's oven is different. I'm using my air fryer, so in my air fryer at 350, it's like a toaster oven air fryer. I know that they have to bake for 35 minutes, but if I'm baking them in my regular oven, then I know that I can bake them about 28-30 minutes at the most. And they come out perfectly fine. You know they're done when you put a toothpick in there and it comes out nice and clean. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this, and if you make this, please tag us on So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. We would love to see pictures of that. And again, we thank you so much for spending your Saturday with us. And don't forget to stay for Q&A at the end of the segment. And coming up next, we've got Debbie, and Debbie's going to be making a blueberry cobbler with a cashew cream. So you know you've got to stay for that one, because that sounds amazing as well. Again, thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
Hey everyone, I'm Debbie Zimmerman from Lakeland, Florida. And one of my favorite items during the summer are all of the berries. From blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries. They are all fabulous. And today I'm going to be making a blueberry crisp. I like the crisp because of the oatmeal on top. So I kind of feel like it's nutritious for us, or at least it's a healthier option. So I'm starting with 4 cups of blueberries. I'm actually using frozen blueberries, but you could use fresh blueberries with this as well. And then on top of that, I am going to squeeze the juice of a lemon. And I rolled this lemon to make sure I can get as much juice out as possible. So I'm just squeezing that on top and do the other half. And of course, we know we're getting plenty of vitamin C with this lemon juice. Okay. And then on top of this, I am just going to sprinkle 1 tablespoon of ground ground chia seeds. And that's just going to add a little fiber there, but it's also going to ensure that it's not going to be too soupy or too much juice coming out. Okay, so we're going to put this to the side until we're ready for it. And then we're going to begin our crisp. And I am starting with 2 cups of old-fashioned oats. And with that, I am going to combine 1 cup of almond flour or almond meal. Now, you could very easily use whole wheat flour with this, but this will be a gluten-free recipe the way I'm preparing it today for all of those who may be gluten intolerant. But it also is a nice diversion from whole wheat flour, and it will also bring out a really nice nutty flavor in this recipe. To this, I am going to add a teaspoon of cinnamon, and I'm going to give that another stir here. And then I am going to use my applesauce. So this is plain applesauce. I'm going to mix it with it. And on top of that, before I begin to mix these together, I am going to stir in a 1/2 cup of date syrup. And I use, let's get that in. There you go. Date syrup. That's not coming in super great, but you get the picture there. So it is date syrup. I have also taken and made a date paste, and you just take the whole date, add some boiling water to it, and let it soak for about 20 minutes. And once you have it soaked, you can put it in the blender and blend it nicely until it forms a nice paste. Okay, and now I'm going to add my date syrup, and I'm going to give this a stir. And this is going to form a beautiful, beautiful crust. And it's very, very simple. Okay, that's perfect. And so now we just need to top our blueberries. Drop there. Okay, so I just wanted to spoon this around and top this with our crust. And this is going to be crispy, but it's also going to be a little bit cake-like as well. It doesn't get quite as crisp as it would if you were adding fat to it, but we know that we don't need that extra fat in our diet. And the almond flour has more fat in it than, or enough fat in it to make this nice and delicious. Okay, so we have some extra here. And so you could have a larger pan with this extra, but it's not that much. Okay, and that looks really super, super good. Now I have my oven set at 350 degrees. And I am going to put this in the oven and let it bake. For about 40 minutes until the top is nice and brown and crunchy. In the meantime, I am going to start our cashew cream. And the cashew cream is what we want to add to the top just to give it a lot of flavor. And this is an optional, but if you're having company and you really want to have that added flavor, the cashew cream really does a nice job. So first of all, I am starting with a cup of cashews. And the cashews I have actually poured boiling water on and let them sit for about 40 minutes, okay? You can, the boiling water helps to soften them much faster. And if you have time, you can actually put the cashews in a bowl and put water on top of them and let them soak overnight. And that is a nice fix. The second thing I'm going to add is a half a cup of milk. And I'm using almond milk with this. With that, I'm adding a teaspoon of vanilla. And I'm also adding 2 tablespoons of apricot paste. Now, just as I mentioned before about the date paste, so these are sun-dried apricots. There is nothing added to this. There's no sulfates added. So why I mention that is that the apricots. The apricots are actually dark. Okay, so they have no preservatives on them. That makes the paste a little bit darker than what you would get if you had the treated apricots, which would be a light orange color. Okay, so this means that your paste is going to be a little bit darker, or your cashew cream is going to be a little bit darker than normal. Now I'm going to cover this up and I'm going to pause my volume for just a moment while I blend this up. So excuse me for one moment. Okay, and we have a beautiful, beautiful cream. And this is a very nice topping for many things. Now, of course, we are limited in time, so I don't have 40 minutes or 45 minutes, excuse me, for the cobbler to bake. So I have already prepared one, and I already have it all. I put it in a bowl already, so all I have to do is add my beautiful cashew cream. And this makes a delicious, delicious topping. So, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the berries of the season and have your blueberry crisp with a little bit of cashew cream and have a wonderful summer. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hi, welcome to Montgomery, Alabama. Debbie, that looks really, really good. I want to try that. I'm also going to be making a cream. It's going to be a little bit different than Debbie's, so not the exact same thing. What I'm making today is parfaits, and they are breakfast parfaits with berries, so they are very good breakfast parfaits. So we're starting with, let's start with the granola layer. So we're going to make a layer of granola. This is a really fast and easy granola. I think on a previous show, probably last year or the year before, we've been doing this for 3 years now. So one of the previous shows, I did show a little more complicated granola. This is going to be a really simple granola. It only goes in the oven for about 14, 15 minutes. And it doesn't require like a really low temperature for a long time like some granolas do. This is fast and easy. So basically you'll need about 1.5 cups of mixed nuts and seeds. So what I have is some almonds and some walnuts and some pecans. These are all chopped already. And then I have 1/4 cup of pumpkin seeds. You could use sunflower seeds. So that's about 1.5 cups, less than 2 cups anyway, of nuts. And then a big heaping cup of whole rolled oats. You could use the instant oats if you want to. I like whole rolled oats, gives it a little more of a crunch. And then we're going to add some cinnamon. So about 1 teaspoon of cinnamon to this. And there we go. And a pinch of salt, just a pinch, optional. You can leave it out, but just a little pinch. There it goes. And I'm using iodized sea salt. Put that out of the way. And then kind of give that a little stir and mix up all of the nuts and oats. Okay, oh, smells good. I love anything with cinnamon. It's so good. Okay, and then in a separate little bowl, I'm going to do, I'm actually going to use maple syrup in this. You could also use agave, date syrup, date paste if you really want to, but you might need to thin it out a little bit so it's a little more pourable. But we're going to do about 3 tablespoons of maple syrup. Let me get that measured out. There's 1. And 2 and 3. Okay, so about 3 tablespoons, and then a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm actually using this organic Greenwise maple syrup from Publix because it's what we have available. All right, and then a teaspoon of vanilla powder. And I really, really like almond flavoring. So this is pure almond extract, and I'm just using a couple of drops. You could leave this out. This is totally optional, but I just think it gives things a really nice flavor. So just a little bit of almond extract, and then whisk that all up. Okay, so all of the liquid is mixed up. And then all you do is pour it over all of the dry ingredients. So this is a super fast granola. Okay. And then just toss it to get all of the pieces coated with the liquid. So all of the nuts, all of the seeds, and the oats just nicely coated. Get all that cinnamon mixed in. So this was vanilla extract. I also have vanilla powder sitting on the counter. I'm going to use that in just a second. So I used a liquid vanilla extract for this. Okay. And then once that is all mixed up, we're going to take just a plain rimmed baking sheet, and I have lined it with parchment paper because you don't want to use a cookie sheet. Everything could slide off the side. So that would be bad. So we're going to take our granola and just dump it out on the baking sheet. And then it goes in the oven at 350 for about 14 to 15 minutes. Stir it a little bit, maybe halfway between. Let me set that down. And then I'm just going to spread it out all over the pan. Okay, so it looks like this, nice and spread out. Okay, and then that goes in the oven for about 14 minutes or so. When it comes out, I've already got one pan made, so it looks like this, and it's nice and crispy. Okay, so you can see it's very crispy and crunchy. Yum. And let it set aside for at least 10-15 minutes to cool off. Set that down. Okay, and so for another layer of the parfait, we're going to make a tofu cashew cream. So it's not exactly the same as the cream Debbie just made. So I'm starting with some silken tofu, which you've seen previously because somebody else earlier used some silken tofu. But silken tofu is really creamy and really good in sauces. This one's an extra firm silken tofu. You don't have to use extra firm. You could use firm. And then just dump that into the blender. And then I also have cashews. This is just a half a cup, and I've already boiled them, which if you have a Vitamix, that step is not entirely necessary, although it does make them a little plumper and creamier. So I still kind of like to do it even though I have a Vitamix. But so it's a half a cup of soaked or boiled cashews. And then I'm going to use agave liquid in this specific batch because I want it to be kind of a white cream and not a brown cream or a tan cream. But if you want to, you could use maple syrup, date paste, possibly even just a few whole dates that you've soaked in warm water for a while as your sweetener. This is not a very, very sweet cream because there's a bit of sweetness to the granola and there's sweetness to the fruit. So it feels like the parfait needed something that was a little bit less sweet to kind of balance it out. So this actually comes out tasting kind of like cream cheese to me. So instead of using a whole lot of sweetener, I'm just using 1 tablespoon. If I can figure out what I just did with my measuring spoons. They're here somewhere. Don't know what happened to them. Here's some in the sink. Okay, so 1 tablespoon of agave. And then this is the part where I'm going to use the vanilla powder because using vanilla extract is brown. And so you want it to be, still want it to be kind of a white cream sauce. So I'm using a teaspoon of vanilla powder. So that's a teaspoon. Oops. Okay, so 1 teaspoon of vanilla powder, which you can find on Amazon. It's this one is Watkins vanilla powder. So it will not make your cream brown or tan. And then again, just because I really like almond flavoring, you can leave this out, but a few drops of the almond flavoring. And then to give it kind of that cream cheese sort of sourness, I'm adding a little bit of, it's like a teaspoon or so of fresh squeezed lemon juice. And it gives it kind of that sourness that you find in sour cream, not in sour cream, in cream cheese. Okay, so I'm going to whirl this all up. Oops, and I dropped my spatula. Okay, so you do have to press it down in there a lot. This is actually really, really thick, so you're going to have to push it down quite a lot. Sometimes it gets a little stuck. So keep scraping it down because we're trying to go with nice and thick and creamy here. All right, try it again. Goodness, it just wants to get stuck today. Okay. I'll keep going a little bit longer on it. This one's stubborn today. Sometimes it takes a few rounds of pushing it down in there to get it nice and creamy. Okay, one more time. We'll try it again. Stuck. Okay, so you want to just keep going and going with it until it gets to be really smooth and creamy, and then you could put it in the refrigerator for a little while. It'll even thicken up more once you put it in the refrigerator for a little bit. I'm going to give it one more whirl and see if it'll take off this time. It's almost there. So I would probably just keep going, but okay, so it's almost smooth and creamy enough. So what we would do to make a really nice little parfait is take clear glass containers like this, and then we have lots of different kinds of fruit. So I have some raspberries and some strawberries and blueberries and blackberries, which are all just so extremely good for you, full of all kinds of phytonutrients, lots of antioxidants to help prevent cancer. So one of the things about berries that I think is really frustrating in the summertime is that when you buy a container of berries, they go bad really fast. Like they start to get mold growing on them really, really quickly. So one trick is when you're at the store to look at the container. Now, if you're buying it from a farmer's market, this is kind of hard to do. But if you're doing it at the grocery store and it's in those clear plastic containers, take it and turn it over. And if the strawberries or the blueberries stick to the bottom of the container, then they're really moist. And that means they're going to go bad pretty fast. But if they're moving around pretty easily in the container, then they're kind of dry. That's a good thing. So when you get them home, really dry them and don't get them wet until you're ready to use them, because if you get them wet and have them in the refrigerator, they're going to go bad really fast. They'll get that mold growing on them very quickly. So keeping them dry is kind of key. Another thing you can do that seems to kill that mold, that fungus that grows on them, is to, especially with strawberries, take them and put them in 10 parts water to 1 part white vinegar, and just kind of dunk them a little bit and then rinse off the vinegar water and let them dry completely on paper towels or kitchen towels, and then put them in the refrigerator. And they will last a lot longer that way if you kill that mold that's already on them when you get them from the store. So yeah, it's not your fault that it happens. It's just already on them when you buy them. But if you can, kill the mold with that vinegar water solution and then get them really, really dry, they're going to last a lot longer in the refrigerator. So the way we make the parfait is I'm going to do blackberries with this one. So blackberries at the bottom, and maybe a little bit of our cream on top of that. Give it kind of a white layer. Okay. And one trick that they never tell you until you go to cooking school is when you are plating something or making it look pretty to serve, you actually want to wipe away excess things on the edges. So, a wet towel or something to wipe away things that you didn't mean to have happen. So if you're trying to make it really pretty little layers, you would take a wet paper towel or something and just wipe the excess off the edges that might have spilled. A little bit of strawberry, and then some of our granola on the top. So sprinkle that on there. That looks pretty good. And then maybe another layer of blueberries. And how about another layer of cream? There. I'll put that on top. Make that really pretty. Okay. And then maybe some raspberries on this one. And you could sprinkle it with a little more of the granola on top. Very pretty. So this is one I already did earlier. And you can see I wiped away the excess, the parts that got on the side, especially the white cream on the side. So it's, you know, it's much neater looking. And this one I did red, white, and blue. So I have the blue layers, the white, the red. There's some raspberries in here. If you can see them, there they are. And then a layer of the granola, another layer of the cream, and then some blueberries and raspberries on top. So this one is kind of a 4th of July looking one. It's red, white, and blue. So layer it however, you know, suits your fancy. You don't have to make it red, white, and blue. And one cool trick is in the fall, if you want to make it more of a fall flavor, instead of doing the agave syrup, you could use maple syrup and leave out the lemon juice and just do maple syrup and cinnamon in your cream, and maybe layer it with apples and walnuts and that kind of thing. And that would be really, really good as a fall breakfast parfait or a dessert. So we like this for breakfast because it's very high in nutrients, very, very filling, lots of protein in your nuts and in your cream layer with all the tofu in there and the cashews. It's just super nutrient dense and really filling. So we've been eating it this week a lot for breakfast. And I'm not hungry until at least lunchtime or after. So when I eat it first thing in the morning before I go teach a fitness class, I am very full when I go to teach a fitness class. So this is a great little breakfast or dessert. So try it and make it your own. Let us know if you try it. You know, let us know by writing back on the comments of this video if you want to. And then remember to stay tuned in our Q&A today and ask a question so you can be entered in a drawing for some pretty good prizes that we've got today, the VRG Resource Group magazine and a pottery berry bowl. So I'm going to send us over now to Karen Osborne, who is making strawberry cheesecake bites, I think, if I read that right. And I'm really curious to see, Karen, what you do with them, because we just had some interesting strawberry cheesecake in Iceland, and it wasn't quite like the strawberry cheesecake we have in the United States. It was a lot more liquidy. So I'm curious to see what you're going to make.
Cool. Yours look so delicious and they're so cute.
Oh, can't hear you.
You can't hear me? I'm not on mute. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Good. I said yours look really cute and they look really delicious. Anyway, yes, I'm Karen Osborne. I'm in Austin, Texas, myfoodfitnessinfo.com. And I'm going to make another fun recipe. I'm going to be making half of my strawberry cheesecake bites, but you want to do the whole recipe because that is what will fit in a regular size blender. And also this was a pound of strawberries and it calls for 2 pounds. This was a pound minus 1 that was moldy and 2 that I ate. So if you're serving it to a lot of people, get 2 pounds of strawberries. I'm gonna I'll tell you, these are, instead of having a crust and making a cheesecake and slicing it, we're just gonna fill the strawberries. So with our cheesecake filling. So what I'm doing, we're not gonna bake these. I'm making like a raw cheesecake filling, but it's healthier than the normal raw cheesecake. A lot of raw cheesecakes have a lot of oil, like coconut oil, that will help it firm up when it gets cold. And instead of using oil, I'm going to use agar powder, and that is it's from a red algae, so you get the minerals also, and it's not adding a lot of fat. and it will thicken up. It's like a vegan. So I'll put it in the water, dissolve it, and then heat it. And as it cools, it gels. So it's going to kind of thicken up the whole filling. Also, a few different things. I'm using some zucchini, and some Hannah sweet potato or Jersey sweet potatoes. So those get thicker as you blend them. The zucchini is full of water too, and minerals. So instead of just adding water and cashews, I'm adding the zucchini for the liquid, and it gets thick, and the sweet potato helps thicken it up. Also adding some dates for the sweetness. Instead of refined sugar, then we get the fiber and the minerals in the dates that help us use the sugar that's in the dates. And I have some lemon juice to make it more like cheesecake, and some vanilla. So I'm going to turn my screen down and we'll get started. I did all of the strawberries except 2. But what you want to do, like Dilip showed you how to do this with a knife. So I'm going to use the little tool. You're just going to first hollow them out. Just stick it in there. Mine is you just give it a twist and pull it back up. And this is hollowing it out. And then the next thing you want to do is make it so they'll stand up by themselves. So we're just going to slice a little bit of the tip off so they'll stand up. So you want to put it so that the hole is like facing out, not just leave it like that and cut off the end, because then it would stand up crooked. So we're going to just cut the tip, and then they stand up. That. And I'm going to just put it on my plate for later. All right, so now we're going to make the filling. And let's see, the first thing I'm going to put in is the lemon juice. So like when you want to blend something, if you put the liquid in first, it kind of helps pull all the solids into the blade. And let's see. Then I'm going to put my zucchini in. That's a watery juice. Right. Lost my zucchini. All right, so I just slice them to help the blender along a little bit. And then I'm going to put my vanilla extract. This makes it taste really good. And then I'm going to put my dates. It doesn't take a many, but that helps thicken it up too. Makes it sweeter. And let's see, then I've got my sweet potatoes. And you do bake them first, or cook them and mash them. And the last thing, I'm just putting a little bit of walnuts. I've done this without any nuts, and it's fine, but just adding a little bit of fat gives it a good mouthfeel. And the walnuts are a good source of omega-3s. You could use cashews if you wanted to, or macadamia nuts. But it's just a little. And then we're going to see if it will blend. I'm going to mute myself while I do this, because sometimes my computer doesn't come back. The sound doesn't come back after I make a lot of noise. Okay, so I blended it until it got nice and smooth. It's nice, it's really thick. And now I'm just going to put a little bit of water. Let's just get this off of the reason I blended it first is because after you put the agar in, it gets thick pretty fast sometimes. All right, so I've got a little saucepan. Put a little bit of water in here. And then a little bit of the agar powder. This is what's going to really help it thicken up. And this actually has a higher melting point than gelatin. So like, you know how you have to keep gelatin in the refrigerator to keep it from melting? This will stay solid at room temperature once it's made. All right, so I'm just dissolving it in the water. And then I'm going to put it on my burner. And you want to keep stirring it. Like I said, you want to just heat it probably for a minute. You could stir it for a minute or two once it comes to a boil. And then as it cools, it will thicken. So that's why I've blended this first, and then we're going to just put that in, blend it again. So usually I do this on the gas stove, and it boils really fast. This burner's not so good. It's coming. I'm going to show you in the meantime. I should keep stirring it, but I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do next. So you could put this whole mixture in a pastry bag, but with one of those special, fancy tip, and pipe it into your strawberries, which is fun. But you don't have to have a pastry bag with a tip. You can just put it in a little sandwich bag. This is even a snack bag because I'm making half of it. So you can just put your bag over a glass to hold it. And then once I have blended this, I'm going to pour it into the bag and cut the tip off of the bag and just pipe it into my strawberries. And then we also have an optional topping. They're fine just with the filling. They're cute. They're delicious. But this is another use for the oats. Like I just had some rolled oats and put a little bit of maple syrup in the bowl with them and stirred it together. Then spread it on a parchment paper lined cookie sheet. And then I baked it at 375. And it depends on how much maple syrup you put in there or how thick you spread it, thick or thin. But it would usually get done in maybe 10 minutes. So you want to stir it like every 4 minutes to make sure it's not burning. All right, so this looks good. All right, so it's kind of thickening up already. You can just kind of cool it off a little bit before you put it in your mixture if you want to. But I'm just going to go ahead and do it now. Blend it up again, and if it's too liquidy when you blend it, you can put it in your refrigerator to cool it off before you pipe it. Oh, I'm gonna mute myself. All right, I'm gonna get rid of this blender. And you could put a pinch of salt in there if you wanted to. It's not necessary. Right. Salt just kind of brings out the sweetness. And this is smooth and thick. I'm just going to put it in this bag. If you're doing the whole recipe, you need a bigger bag, obviously. All right. So I would let this cool just a little bit and thicken up before I start piping it. But I'm going to go ahead and pipe it. Get a little more in. But you can see it's getting thick. Just the cooler it gets, the thicker it will get. Alright, so I'm just gonna close my bag. And it's kind of warm. Okay, so I'm gonna just cut off the tip. And good scissors. Bring my berries up here. And just start filling. Pipe it in. And leave a lot at the top. It's good. Really fill them up. And as I said, they'll get harder, thicker. Gonna use a little bit of topping. Just drop some of this granola on. And we have strawberry cheesecake bites. So that's another little fun thing just to have indoors or outdoors parties, picnics. And they are yummy. So that is the end of our recipes. I'm going to toss you back to Dillip for a Q&A. Dillip, we can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I was just commenting that your strawberries look great. I wish all the dishes look so good. I wish that you guys were all like my neighbors. And there's Carolyn, Odie, and Dan. This is our team for the Q&A. I'm kind of hungry, and the bad thing is if we were all neighbors, then we aren't spread out to spread the health. But it'd be cool to be neighbors. All right. So a lot of questions have come in, and from now on, from this point on, anybody who asks a question will be in the drawing. Karen, you have your notepad handy, so to take questions. And if you ask a question, you'll be in the drawing for winning something. Okay. Let's see. So one comment has come in. I have a bunch of questions, but let's start with Janice Jackson. So welcome to the show, Janice. I think you're new, so let us know if you've you've lurked before, but I think you're new and glad you're here. Can you use yellow squash in the cheesecake instead of zucchini?
You can if you want to cut the seeds out. If you have a really high-powered blender, and it will blend those seeds really smooth. The zucchinis blend really smooth.
Okay. And then there's a question from Bonnie. So welcome again, Bonnie. It's always good to see you. And that is about the ratio of vanilla bean powder to vanilla extract. Is it the same?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. All right. All right, good. So let me remove that comment. All right. I had a couple of questions as well. So one thing is about soaking cashews. So and privately, Cody and I were talking about that. So anybody, I'm a lazy cook, and a lot of times I want to make something, and it calls for creaming cashews or walnuts or almonds, and I'll use my Vitamix. So Karen, you're probably the expert in this area. Is it critical to soak your cashews? There's a woman also named Karen in Chicago. She used, I think it's no longer there. She used to have a book. Susanna probably knows this restaurant. It was called Karen's Raw and Karen's Cooked, and she had a book which was called Soak Your Nuts, and was talking about how you can soak your cashews and all and make really cool things. So is it critical to soak? Because I usually don't.
Not for the white nut, like cashews or macadamia nuts. You don't have to soak them. If you have just a regular blender that's not a high-powered blender, it helps to make them softer and you can blend them creamier. But soaking nuts, you want to soak the nuts with the brown skins, because then that removes the enzyme inhibitors, which can be harder to digest and also makes them taste better, be a little bit bitter.
You know, as a follow-on question, it's easy to make almond milk. I haven't made it in a while, but it's easy. You just take almonds and water and blend them. So with almonds, it is important to soak, not just for color, but I understand, and anybody who knows more about this than I do, that there's something, and it's kind of what you said, Karen, there's some inhibitors, is generally we want to eat foods in their whole form, but almonds are a counterexample. And what I tell my students, but see if any of you can add more to this, is that there's no problem eating the almond whole, but almond is one of those foods where it's better if you remove the skin. Can somebody explain that or refute that?
You might be talking about like nutrient inhibitors. Is that what they're talking about? Yeah. So
Okay. So the almond skin reduces the nutrient uptake?
Yeah, can.
Okay. And do you agree with me when I tell my students that if you forget to soak the almonds and say you make almond milk, first of all, the milk will look brownish, and that's not a big deal, and it won't be quite as nutritive because you won't have as much nutrient uptake, but it's still okay?
Yeah, if you soak them,
and remove the skin.
Pour out that water. Just pour out the water, even if you don't take the skin off. Just pour out the water. It's a little bit better. Yeah, it gets rid of, and use fresh water.
Okay. And Mary, I can answer this question. How do you remove the skin from the almonds? So this is what my mom would do. So I remember growing up, my mom's from India. She's dead now. She died, but she was from India. And so what she would do, she would often have a small metal container of almonds for everybody to take one or two in the daytime. And what she'd do is she'd soak the almonds, and then you just get rid of the water and you do this. You just rub it and the skin comes right off. And then we would enjoy these plump almonds, and they tasted better because they were hydrated. So thanks for asking the question. Karen, you're maintaining a list of all the people asking questions, right? So we added Mary. Sandra has a question. So Sandra Cohen, is date paste readily available, or is it easy enough to make? So I think it's pretty easy to find. I wouldn't make it because you could make it, but then it's hard to clean your blender. Does anybody else want to add to that comment about date paste?
It's super easy to make. I mean, just fresh date, like not fresh dates, but dates, dried dates, take the pit out, put it in your blender or food processor with maybe just a little water to loosen it up. You could soak the dates first to get them really, really plump, and then just whirl it up in your food processor until it becomes a paste, and just use as much as you need, because it doesn't last that long in the refrigerator, maybe a few days. But
how about In terms of lasting, Mary Anders had a question. How long will the cheesecake last?
It should last about 3 days in your refrigerator. These will be gone tonight. I've never really kept them that long, but that's what it should be.
Now, Lucy, I encourage you to ask your question again. You had a really good question. And if you do, we'll put you in the drawing. And if you don't, I'm going to ask it because it's a good one. I was going to ask Cody that anyhow about tofu. But let's hang on and see if Lucy can pose that question. Let's see. I had a question for you, Carolyn, in terms of mold. So when you buy berries, what I always do is I wait. I tell people when you have berries, don't wash them. Wash them just before using them, right? So you get the mold out. So I just finished a week of summer camp and I took all these. Do you remember? I think it was either Cody or Carolyn. I think it was you, Carolyn. I was joking. I felt I had wonderful students. I teach math. I also teach math, and I had these wonderful math camp students. And I was joking. I said, I feel a little bit sorry for the kids, not because they're in my camp. I was so glad they're in my camp. But when it came time for snacks, I had these luscious berries, cherries, and strawberries and blueberries. Was it you, Cody? I was saying this to, or maybe you, Carolyn. So I would munch on these just really amazingly tasty. We're getting great cherries. And so what I did is I would take the berries with me to the camp in a container, and I had a water bottle. And just before I wanted to eat them, I would just pour some of the water from my water bottle, swish it around, and get rid of the water. And I get to eat my wonderful food while the others were eating like potato chips and corn chips and things like that. So anyhow, can you? One thing I wanted to ask you, Carolyn, is when I find berries in the market, sometimes I look kind of carefully and I see a little bit of white. And if it's just one of them, and if they all have it, then I'm still suspect because mold spreads quickly with spores. But how can you check like the interior ones? Do you have any tricks for that?
Well, like I was saying, if you take the plastic container at the store and then flip it upside down, and if the ones at the bottom stick to the bottom and then they're not real loose, there's a lot of moisture in there, which means it's going to go bad really quickly. So you want to find the ones that when you gently flip the container over, they seem dry and not stuck to the bottom. Then it's not going to have quite as much risk for mold. I mean, I've seen people at the grocery store just open the lid and look through it before they buy stuff. So you could do that. But, I usually leave it in the refrigerator and wash it right before I use it. But if I notice that any of them, right when I get it home and I open it and I find any that have mold, then I go ahead and do that vinegar water thing on them because I know that mold's already growing pretty quickly in there. So if there's one, then it's going to spread really fast. So if you can do that vinegar water trick and make sure they get really, really dry and then put them back in the refrigerator. So that helps.
So Cody, this was something I was wondering about, and Lucy Bell Scott, and welcome, Lucy. I think you're new to our show, so if you are new, welcome, and let us know how you found us. And if you're not new, then welcome to another episode. We're so glad that you have found us. So Lucy Bell Scott has asked, having never used tofu, I guess in anything in main courses or desserts, I'm not sure about it. I didn't hear Cody say which silken tofu to use, soft, medium, or firm. I don't want to get the wrong one. And so Cody, can you answer that, and can you also talk a little bit about the difference between firm and extra firm, and more importantly, silken versus regular? Because I know my daughter Anu, she was doing something. She said, "Daddy, I need some silken tofu," and at that time I didn't have it, so I said, "Just use regular tofu," and it came out fine. So ideally, you should use what the recipe calls for, but we can make changes. Can you spend a few minutes talking about the difference between different kinds of tofu, please?
Sure. So the kind that I used for our pudding was a silken, firm tofu because we added some juices to it. The berries are juicy, the lemon juice is juicy, of course. And so I wanted the firm silken. Silken is going to be very smooth. It doesn't have really much texture. It's just really creamy when you mix it up. And then there's different levels of the silken tofu. There's like soft, firm, and extra firm. And so it just kind of depends what you're making with it. So but these are usually used for like the dessert types, the puddings, the stuff that you really want a nice creamy consistency. Probably like a salad dressing too. If you're looking for something creamy, you might want to throw in a silken tofu in there as well. Now, if you're looking for something with more texture, so if you're gonna like air fry the tofu, you probably want to go with more of a regular tofu, which is not the silken. And then there's different levels of moisture content. So like the firmest or the extra firm that has the least amount of moisture in it. So when you press it, you're going to get less water out of it. It's going to be like it says, it's going to be firmer. But it just kind of depends on what you're making too. So really look at the instructions on the recipes that you're reading and try to follow those if they suggest a certain type of tofu, because it will help out with what you're making if you follow it correctly. So I don't know if that answered it thoroughly enough for you.
Yeah, please ask again if it doesn't. Would you agree with me, Cody, that if you don't have the silken, or if you don't have the firm or extra firm, use what you have, but ideally use what the recipe calls for?
Yeah, like I wouldn't want to use probably a regular tofu for making my pudding. It would just be too much texture, maybe almost clumpy. I don't know. It just kind of depends. If you really had a great blender, you maybe could get it smooth. So it just kind of depends. You probably have to add more liquid to it to get it at that smoothness level as well. So
And I wanted to also add, Lucy, tofu is a wonderful food, and maybe one of us, if you can find it, if you can post the PCRM fact sheet on tofu and soy, that would be, I think, useful to share. So tofu is nutritionally wonderful. It's a minimally processed food. It's practically just smushed soybeans, and it has so many benefits. So Lucy, I encourage you to play with tofu. So any recipe from Cody, any recipe from any of us, I think is going to be a good one. So certainly try to make her and Nora's pudding, but also just take regular tofu, not silken tofu, and cut it into cubes, firm or extra firm, and do a saute. You don't really need any oil at all. If you have a high quality fan, put it in an air fryer. I was lucky enough to visit Cody, and she made some amazing air fried tofu, right? I had it at least once at your house. It was so good. And I make it sometimes too. Just take the tofu, and what I do is I kind of, I have different spices, something called nutritional yeast. I roll the tofu cubes out around in nutritional yeast, maybe some sesame seeds and maybe some cumin, other spices, and air fried with no oil. It's really good. So do play with tofu. Sandra has a question about vinegar, and Carolyn, you've been talking about this. Does vinegar water kill all the mold spores? How dangerous are residual spores?
I mean, yeah, it's supposed to kill them all, so I would I would assume it does. When I do it, I take a big bowl, fill it with water, and then just splash in some white vinegar, soak all my strawberries or blackberries, whatever. I don't worry about blueberries, but raspberries, blackberries, strawberries can get that mold, and strawberries in particular can really get the mold. I don't think the mold is dangerous. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's ever been shown that it hurts people if you accidentally eat a little bit of it. It's not like other kinds of mold, but I think it's okay. The vinegar water, in theory, is supposed to kill all the mold. So, but if you've already got something in your refrigerator that has other mold on it that you don't know about, I'm pretty sure the mold spores, will get on your strawberries too, and then start growing. But I've never heard of it being particularly dangerous for people.
Susanna, thank you for posting. So if you haven't yet, do visit PCRM. Maybe Susanna can tell us what is PCRM and what our relationship is. This show isn't sponsored by PCRM or anything, but we're all connected to PCRM. And in a minute, I'll ask Susanna to tell us a little bit about that. But PCRM has amazing resources about anything nutrition based. And the link that Susanna posted is all about soy products. So that's a good place to go to. So this is the fact sheet on soy products. So when Susanna gets back from her oven, maybe you could say a word about what is PCRM and who are we in terms of PCRM. That's okay.
I'm baking breakfast cookies after I made my salsa. I love having these little oat cookies with some. I use some of my fresh blueberries to make some jam, and made those for my breakfast tomorrow. But yeah, I posted the link, for PCRM and the research about soy and how it is beneficial. And you wanted me to talk about PCRM? Is that what you said, Dylan?
What is PCRM and how are we connected to PCRM?
Yep. So PCRM is the Physicians Committee for, oh my gosh, now it just went out of my head.
Responsible.
For responsible medicine. Yeah. It's like, oh, today's been a day. It's Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And Dr. Neil Barnard, you may have heard and seen he has many YouTube videos. He's been on PBS, but he started PCRM while he was in medical school and realizing that physicians really weren't provided an education in nutrition. And, we know the impact of the food we put in our body and how it impacts our health. So PCRM has a lot of different programs. One of their programs is the Food for Life program, and that's where all of us have gone. I went in 2014 to Washington, D.C., and was trained for, I think it was almost 5 days, to become a licensed Food for Life instructor. So we offer classes in our communities. When the pandemic hit, we were offering them online, and it was Dilip's wonderful idea to start this So Many Cooks. And it's amazing to me that, it was I think May of 2020 was when we had our first.
3 years ago.
Yeah, that it's 3 years and 2 months ago. It's been awesome. It's been really great. And it's been that way because of, I want to say, viewers like you. Does that sound like, but you're why we're here. Because, some of you find us new, some of you come back and to each of the shows, but I would definitely check out the PCRM website. They now have online training, so if you're ever interested in becoming a Food for Life instructor, but you'll just get a wealth of nutrition information. So I definitely recommend you check out the website.
I have to say there's more and more people in this space talking about plant-based eating, veganism. Some of us have been around doing this for a long time. I've been promoting veganism for 25 years, maybe more, so a long time. And if you find a vegan group, um, there's all sorts of people with all sorts of knowledge, but this group in particular, the Food for Life Physicians Committee, they do an unbelievable job picking us. I know as a fact, if I never had met, say, Karen, right, and I heard there's a Food for Life instructor in Austin, Texas, without a doubt, I know that she's outstanding because the way they pick us, everybody is just fabulous. The moment you know somebody's a Food for Life instructor, they know what they're talking about. They know something about food, something about nutrition, and something about how to cook. It's a pretty rigorous process when they pick us. We have to show we know how to teach. We know how to teach vegan cooking. We know about whole food plant-based issues, and they do a background check and interview and detailed training. So if you check out fflclasses.org. And also, if you yourself are vegan, whole food, plant-based, and want to become an instructor, try it. There's information there about how to become one. Oh, and Bonnie is saying about Jim Loomis. He's amazing. So if you're anywhere near DC or want to go there, the Barnard Medical Center sees patients, and it's a team-based approach. You don't just have a doctor there. You do have a doctor, and you have somebody who focuses on food. And I think that generally the first appointments they have several practitioners working with you. So Bonnie says, I also see Dr. Loomis and have met with a nutritionist via telehealth from the Barnard Medical Center. They spend a lot of time, which is so different from regular physicians. So yeah, thanks for that comment, Bonnie. And you can find the Barnard Medical Center. Maybe somebody can find the link and post it here for the Barnard Medical Center. Okay, there was a question from Mary Anders about vinegar. So anybody, I think Carolyn was the one who said it, but anybody who uses vinegar and water to clean, go ahead and answer. What ratio of vinegar to water?
10 to 1.
Okay, my answer is it doesn't really matter. But what's the right answer?
I mean, I do 10 to 1, 10 parts water, 1 part vinegar. But, that's not an exact science. So
correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't really matter. You don't want to do 100% vinegar because then you'll get flavor into the thing. And you don't want to put 1 drop of vinegar to 1 gallon of water because then you're not getting any benefits. So just like I tell my math students, use common sense, right? My math students, when they're doing, 2+, I was working with pre-kindergarten or kindergarten through 2nd graders earlier today. And we were doing a hard math problem. What's 14 plus 8, right? So I told the kids, first come up with roughly what is it? That's a little bit more than maybe 20, so you know that, right? Same thing here, is you don't want to dump tons of vinegar in, or you don't want to dump just a drop. So, but yeah, I guess the ratio that works for you, Carolyn, is 10 to 1. So thanks.
Well, one of my favorite things to do with vinegar that's not food based, but it's really good for cleaning. And if you have a kid who leaves a wet towel laying somewhere and you find it a few days later and it smells horrible and mildewed, white vinegar will fix it really quickly. You just soak the towel in a bucket with water and a whole bunch of, it's not really 10 to 1 at that point. I'd probably do like, 1 part vinegar to 2 parts water at that point, but soak the towel in it and then wash it regularly like you would. It kills the mildew in the towel. So it's really useful for when your kids leave wet towels or something and you find it and it just smells awful a few days later, then it works.
When you buy new towels, it's actually a good idea before you use your towel to wash it in water with vinegar, and the vinegar helps make it stay absorbent. And don't use, this isn't a clothes show, but don't use what's it called, softener. That's not good for the towels. Okay, I have a couple questions. So Suzanne, I wanted to ask you, and thank you for the link to the Barnard Medical Center. Can you talk a little bit about when you did your when you put things in your air fryer in your little oven, you use parchment paper. Is that an important part of your recipe, or is that optional?
Well,
And what is parchment paper?
Oh, parchment paper. Well, I don't know what it is. It's a paper that you can use in your oven. It's not wax paper. Wax paper, it goes in your oven, you'll have a big mess and it's toxic, I think. But parchment paper is paper you can bake on that. I think it's up to 500 degrees safe. And so the reason that I use it, and I mostly use the unbleached, I do have some of the white, but I'm moving forward to get the unbleached just to reduce the amount of chemicals. I like to use it because I have old pans that I don't want aluminum seeping into my food. It's easier for cleanup. When I did it with my chips, because I had dipped them in the aquafaba mixture or the lime, it's going to drain on top of my pan and make my pan dirty. So it's just a way to also bake without using oil. I don't, when I even have little parchment paper cupcake cups that I put in my metal pan. I don't have to use oil when I bake with parchment paper. Things don't stick on it. Sometimes I even, if it doesn't get dirty, I'll reuse it because, I hate to keep using a lot of paper, but it's a great baking tool that I think you want to use.
I love it because it makes cleanup so much easier. I've been using it for
Right.
many years. I get the unbleached, and I also don't know a lot of details about what it is, but I do know it's a paper that it's not that it's inflammable. It actually can burn. I mean, if it gets
Yes.
very close to
Yes.
heating element, and there's a certain temperature. But for the vast majority of baking purposes, it's not flammable. So I've had parchment paper. So like my air frying uses convection, and you have to be careful not to leave too much paper overhanging because the air, when it goes up, if it hits the elements, it's not going to be a good thing. So be careful with that. Karen, I want to ask you a question that's come up in my own life when I was a kid. My parents are immigrants from India, and when my mom would slice watermelon, and I think my wife does it sometimes still, my mom would sprinkle salt on the watermelon, and she would say, "Dilip, when you put salt on watermelon, it brings out the sweetness." And can you talk more about that? Does it have to do with osmotic pressure? When you put salt, it pushes out because of because things are sorry.
Yeah, it pushes the sugar to the
Surface.
top actually, but and salt in anything just brings out the sweetness and.
But why?
Yeah.
Why does salt bring out sweetness? Because salt brings out saltiness as well. It makes things salty.
If you don't put too much. So like if you have all to balance the flavors, like you don't want to taste any one of the flavors. You want something sweet, something salty, something sour, something pungent, and something bitter. So, but you don't want to taste any one of those, but then your tongue will be really, really happy and you'll think, oh, this is really, really good.
Okay. And I've tried it. Once in a while I put a little bit of salt in my watermelon, and you do get, more of the sugars at the surface, the natural watermelon sugars, but I don't like the taste of salt with watermelon. So I guess maybe I'm putting too much.
Maybe.
Maybe.
This takes a tiny.
Can you also talk about compressed watermelon? So I think all of us have been, and maybe this would be a good time for Cody to talk a little bit about it. I'm not going to be there this year. I used to go every year, but Cody has a big is doing something really important at the conference. We have an annual conference called ICNM, International Conference in Nutrition and Medicine, uh, and um, and so maybe Cody, you could tell us what that is and invite people. It's not just for medical professionals, but if you are a medical professional, especially if you're a nurse, then you want to hang out with Cody. You can tell us what you're doing there. Um, but but I lost my train of thought. Something about the conference that Karen said. But anyhow, Cody, why don't you talk about that, and maybe my idea will come back.
Yeah, so the International Conference on Nutrition in Medicine is in Washington, D.C., and it's annual, and it's August 10th through the 12th, so it's coming up pretty soon. And it's got providers from all over the world that attend. You don't have to be a provider, but it's just wonderful information. It's a way to collaborate with like-minded people, learning the updated research on nutrition, and making, like I said, making great connections. My fellow co-leader of the Nurses Nutrition Network, we co-host the Nurses Luncheon. That it's usually on, I think, Friday. But anyway, so it's a really fantastic time to meet new people. And we usually have about 70 nurses from all over the country join us. And so it's just really fantastic to meet each other. And it's just a great event, great food, of course, as well.
Great. Thanks, Cody, for that. And it was really nice because last year my daughter and I came early. We couldn't stay for the conference, and we got to hang out with Cody, go to some museums, and have some wonderful food. So that was really nice. It's always fun hanging out with you, Cody.
Hey, Dilla.
Yes.
So my daughter, the medical student, has an answer as to why salt works with things with sugar like watermelon, because it's the SGLT1 receptor on your taste buds that needs salt to transport sugar. It needs salt because it's a sodium glucose co-transporter. There you go. You have the medical student explanation for it.
Thank you. Thanks, Molly. So, and Bonnie, the name of the conference is International Conference on Nutrition in Medicine. And I've gone for many years. I'm not a healthcare provider, but even I can understand a lot of the talks, at least at some level. And the food is phenomenal. That was the question I had. So one thing about the conference is they always have compressed watermelon. And I was telling somebody about it. Can somebody who knows what my thought is compressed watermelon is you literally just squish it and then you have a more intense flavor. But if you squish it, you lose some of the water. So do any of you guys know about compressed watermelon?
I think you just press it like you would tofu, really slowly, with the pressure coming down and down and down. It does squeeze out the liquid of it. It makes the flavor much more concentrated.
And so I guess what you could do is collect the liquid and drink it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Put it in a smoothie.
Okay. Maybe next month or some month coming up, we should talk about soda a little bit. So I know that a couple of you, Cody and Carolyn, I haven't had this conversation with you, Karen, but I should. So I was at not this conference, but a math conference, and I discovered I don't drink soda. Soda's, it's not good for you. I buy Coke once in a while because it's good for the toilet. You put it on the toilet and it's acidic. I don't like soda. It doesn't taste good. My daughter wasn't exposed to soda until she was maybe 8. And I said, hey, sweetie, there's other kids will probably be having this. You might want to try it. Because I bought some for the toilet. And she took a little bit. She said, this is terrible. And I said, yeah, it's pretty bad. But we like root beer and we have it 3-4 times a year. We don't have it very much. But I discovered a soda called Olipop or something, and it has literally like 2 grams of sugar, and it has prebiotics. I sent a note just a few hours ago to Brenda Davis, who's my go-to, to see what she has to say about it. There's got to be some downside, but looking at the label, it looks like it's all good stuff, and it tastes good. My daughter loves it. She says the root beer is wonderful, and I don't see any reason not to. So I've been buying a lot of this Olipop just so we can sample all the flavors and know what it's like. I love the grape. I love the root beer. The cream soda is okay. It's all vegan. The cherry vanilla is okay. It's actually pretty good. But I don't know if any of you know from a nutrition point of view, I don't see any downside with it. And if we want, we can wait to have this conversation until next month when we get a little bit more information. But if anybody knows
I
any,
tried the root beer flavored one, Dilip, because you mentioned it, and then I saw it at Target, so I grabbed a
what'd
can.
you think?
I mean, they only have single cans. They don't come in 6 packs. You have to buy just one can at a time from the refrigerated section. It was really good. I was kind of surprised how good it was.
But from a
So,
nutrition point of view, do you see any downside to it?
I mean, there's not a lot of sugar. It's low in
Two,
calories,
two
and it
grams of
has,
sugar.
yeah, it has a lot of, is it prebiotics? Probiotics.
Prebiotics.
Prebiotics, yeah. So, yeah, it
It
was
seems
pretty
like it's a
good.
healthy drink, I think, but there's got to. I'm sure Miss Brenda will come up with some. We'll see what she has to say about
I'll
it.
be very curious to hear what she says.
My thought is we're buying it just so we can sample it. But if we start saying we really like this, then maybe our tongue will change. And instead of looking for water and other drinks when we're out and about, we really want some soda, and that's not available. And then we buy the regular stuff. That's
Maybe.
the one thing I can think of. But at least for a while, we're going to keep buying it and trying the different flavors. Okay, we'll do the drawing soon. We'll start bringing this to a close. I do have more questions. Maybe I'll ask another one. Let's talk to you, Cody, again. Can you talk a little bit about you and I have young children, and we have so many kids in the kitchen. Can you tell us more about so many kids in the kitchen and what it's like bringing our children into the kitchen? And one quick thought before you answer that is one thing that's been happening in our family, which is pretty cool. I don't think I've mentioned this to you, is lately my daughter more and more has been cooking. So yesterday we were going out to a performance, and my daughter I knew said, "Daddy, can I make dinner?" And I said, "Sure." I had taught all day and I was tired. I wanted to take a nap. I was taking a nap and I heard her working in the kitchen and ended up with my nap, and she had me make the salad, but everything else she made was really good. So can you talk about so many kids in the kitchen and working with kids in the kitchen?
Yeah, so we started this, I think it was the same year, right? So 2020 towards the end of that.
August.
Yeah. And so it's Dilip's daughter, my three daughters, and then me and Max in Rhode Island. That's Ella Rodriguez's daughter and son. And so every other month we do a show. The parents usually just run the background, and the kids just go at it and have a good time. Our last one was a Harry Potter theme, which was really a fun show for the kids. They really got into that. I think it's really important to start kids at a young age with cooking, or at least helping with prepping and tasting different foods, a variety of different colors, because kids like to try very colorful things. And just give them more responsibilities to do. Like my oldest, she'll cook supper sometimes too, and it always turns out great. She has really creativity, juices flowing, so to speak, and she just, whatever she comes up with, it's always so good, stuff that I wouldn't normally think of. So it's really fun to see what kids come up with. But I really love it. The kids love doing it, and we're looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, and not this past Harry Potter one, but the one before. My daughter and Cody's oldest daughter cooked together. We did a split screen. We had never done that with the kids or cooks. And guys, we should do that. And so many cooks in the kitchen. Sometime we should have, Karen and Carolyn working together, or Susanna and me, for example. We're all really good at what we do, but we have different kind of focuses. It would be kind of fun, while Carolyn's cooking, if maybe, Karen can be talking about kind of some aspects of it, and then vice versa. We should try that sometime. There was this question from Janice Jackson. Could you? Oh, and I'm sorry, I was interrupting you, Cody. You were going to talk about the next kids show, I think, right? We haven't set the topic, but it's going to be in September.
That's all I know so far, Dilla.
Okay.
There's nothing else to say yet.
Anu has an idea, and it was pasta. She wants to do a pasta show because she invented a really cool way of making pasta, and
That's right.
so
Yeah,
that
that
might
sounds
be.
like a great topic. And my kids love pasta.
So Janice Jackson, could you give me some research on why aluminum is dangerous? Maybe Karen, do you want to take this one, or maybe Susanna?
Well, for research, I think PCRM has some articles on it, but it can get into and cause oxidation in like your liver, your kidneys, your brain. So don't want that.
So Karen, if somebody has an aluminum pan, years and years ago, I think I probably did, should they get rid of it?
Or put parchment paper on it. Don't let your food touch it. Yeah.
Okay. And that's an interesting question. I don't have an answer, and maybe one of you does. So before I knew better, I used to use Teflon. And Teflon's not a good choice. It's not good for the environment. It outgasses. They actually have a label on Teflon. If you're using it and there's a bird in the house, don't use it because the bird could die. Do you really want to cook something where a bird will die if you heat it up? So Teflon is not a good choice. And once I found out, I had this wonderful pan. I used it all the time. It was this Teflon pan, and I stopped immediately. I no longer used it. What do you do with Teflon or aluminum? Because you can give it to a thrift store, but then some person's going to be using it. Do you throw it in the garbage? What do you do with something which is not a good thing to use? Any thoughts on that? It's related to the question. I don't know if anybody saw the film Vegucated, and they talked about these people, and they said, we'll give you a bunch of money if you go vegan for a week or a month or something like that. Joel Furman did medical workup before and after, Dr. Joel Furman. And so this question came up, like this family wanted to go vegan, and they had this freezer full of like dead fish and dead cows and things like that. And so several families talked about that. And one family just, got rid of all of it and they gave it to somebody else. But do you want to give your unhealthy foods to other people? Do you want to throw it out? So then you think about the animal who's been killed and nothing's happened to them, right? They've died and their flesh is there, and you just put in the compost. So there's no right answer. I don't know if anybody has any interesting thoughts about what to do with non-vegan foods that you have in your home, which no, you're not now becoming vegan, or pans that you don't want to use. Does anybody have any ideas there?
If you have a pot or something, paint it and put a plant in it. There you go.
And what do you do to one of your students or a friend who says, my heavens, Cody, my heavens, Carolyn or Karen or Susanna or Dilip, I've not been vegan, and all of a sudden I saw this film, I took your class, I read this book. I don't want to eat non-vegan foods, but I have some hamburgers, some dead fish, I have things in my freezer. What do you tell them to do?
Feed it to your dog.
My dog's vegan too.
I know. I don't want to give it to my dog either.
So we can retouch this topic. I think it's a good topic that's worthy of some good discussion, and I think that'd be a good one. But I think we're getting way beyond time. I think we should do the drawing. So I'm going to bring up random.org, and I used to, and my daughter said this isn't fair. I used to say, let me do just a sample one, and the winner is 2, and now let's do it for real. I won't do that. We'll just roll it. So the way it works is random.org gives you a random number, and Karen in a second is going to tell me how many people are in the drawing. Actually, tell us what names you have, Karen. Who has asked questions?
Janice Jackson, Bonnie Martin, Mary Anders, Sandra Cohen, Lucy Bell Scott.
Okay, so how many is that? I wasn't writing that down. How many people do? How many?
Five.
5. Okay, so in a minute, I'm going to draw a random number from 1 to 5. This is your very last chance to ask a question and be added to that list. And if you have added a question and we forgot, this is your chance to say, nope, I asked a question. Please add me. Make it 6. I'm surprised, Carolyn, that Molly hasn't asked a question. She was watching. And so, Molly, we hope you'd ask a question of your mom now. She's really smart. Can you imagine one day, Cody, when you and I have grown kids, right? So Ava or Nora is out there, right? 30-year-old Nora, and she's like this very famous person. and now she's as good a cook as you. She'll say, Mom, I'm also a good cook, but you're better than I am at this. And here's my question for you. I'm now living in Lincoln, Nebraska. You're still in Omaha, right? Can you imagine that? Or a new... So Molly, we'd love for you to ask a question, and she was finding out, Carolyn, if your mom was here. So let's go with 5 because it doesn't seem like there's any response to that. So I'm going to draw a random number, and then what you need to do is say, "Yep, I'm here," and you need to send a note. Let me go ahead and post it. So email to Molly can't think of anything. Molly, that's because you're so smart. You know everything. But your mom is also super, super smart. That's why you're so smart, because of your mom and dad. So email to Karen at somanycooks.com if you win. Okay. And what we'll do is we'll say the winner is such and such, and then we'll ask you to send an email, because we'll need your mailing address, and please don't post it here on social media, but send it to Karen, and then she'll have your address and she'll get you your prize. Okay. So let me do 1 to 5. Karen, what prize do you want to give out first?
Oh, let's do the magazine.
Okay, so we're giving out a 1-year subscription to VRG, Vegetarian Resource Group's Vegan Journal. We were just in Baltimore, which is where Vegan Journal is founded. I went to college in Baltimore, and Charles and Deborah, who run the group, whenever I'm in Baltimore, we always hang out. And so here's the thing. If you get VRG Journal, open it up and look at their pictures. I think Charles and I look really alike, and my daughter agreed. So we got a picture of us together.
Hmm.
So Charles Stoller and Deborah Wasserman, they put out a wonderful magazine called Vegetarian Journal. They now call it Vegan Journal, and you get a 1-year subscription if you are I'm going to draw a random number from 1 to 5. So the number is 1. Who's number 1?
Janice Jackson.
Janice Jackson. So Janice, congratulations. So let us please post that you're here. Congratulations to Janice for winning the VRG subscription. So Janice, please let us know that you're here, and then that you are going to be sending an email to, yep, there she is. So congratulations to you. So Janice, please send an email, hopefully right away if you can, to Karen, and then once Karen gets it, she will get you the subscription. Great magazine. Okay. And then tell us, Karen, so Karen picked out all the gifts. So tell us what our second gift is.
A really cool stoneware bowl with the handle, and it has the holes. It's like a colander. You can put your berries in it, wash it, dump it out, and then just carry your berries.
Well, I asked a few questions. Can I be in the drawing? Whoever wins this is really lucky, right? This looks really good. And this is US made. It's made in Georgia, I think, right? So we were looking at bowls and we found one that looked really nice, but it was made in China, and we decided it would be nice to get something made locally. And so Karen found something that's made locally. And by the way, Karen, I suggest whoever wins this that you send them the link before you order it for them, because it actually has 3 or 4 color choices. And we could let the winner say, I don't like the gray one you picked out. I like the, one of the other colored ones. So if that's feasible for you, Karen, you might want to do that. So the winner, if I roll 1, I'm going to roll again because the same person doesn't win 2 prizes. So 2. So first 1 and then 2. So who's number 2? Bonnie. And Bonnie, you asked lots of questions, and I know you're a regular, so I'm really glad that you won. So congratulations, Bonnie. Let me write that here. And Bonnie, please let us know that you're still here. Congratulations to Bonnie for winning the Berry Bowl colander. I think I'm probably going to get one of those bowls. That'd be really handy. So Bonnie, let us know that you're still here and that you're going to send a note to Karen. Yay, Bonnie's here. Excellent. Thanks for all your wonderful questions, to both of you, to everybody who's been asking questions. So Bonnie, please send an email to Karen@somanycooks.com, and then Karen will send you a link, and you can say, I think there's like 4 or 5 different colors. You'll say, I want that one, and we'll get that one for you. Okay, so let's start to wrap up. Cody, Karen, Carolyn, or Susanna, did you want to share any of your wonderful words of wisdom? Any questions or any things you want to? Oh, and we have a nice comment here from Jane Stein. I'm in the Dominican Republic. I missed the show. Oh no! Were the recipes with tropical fruits? Did we use any tropical fruits? We used berries. I don't think we used any tropical fruits. So Jane, I'd be interested to know, I don't know if berries grow in tropical climates. I don't think they do, but please post whether there are berries like strawberries or blueberries, blackberries. Oh, I do have a question, and the question is this. Technically, from a scientific point of view, the things we're talking about aren't all berries, and if anybody would be you, Karen, who would know. For example, I think the strawberry is actually not a berry because the seeds are on the outside. Tell us more about what is a berry, Karen, and did we mislead you when we talked about strawberries?
Yeah, so botanically, a cucumber is a berry. A berry is one fruit from one flower with many seeds. And it's like a watermelon is a berry, cucumber, a gourd, citrus is a berry. And
citrus is a berry?
Yeah, the reason,
really?
botanically, but the reason, like from the Old English, they called grapes. It's like, I think Berie or something like that. And then that was Old English. And then when the states, like North America, has colonized, any small, like grape-shaped fruit kind of took on the suffix of berry. So that's
Okay,
how we
cool.
got. But blueberries are really berries, cranberries are really berries, raspberries and blackberries are not really berries.
Okay, and I'm sorry, Lucy, about not posting it again, but this is the link for the recipes. It's tinyurl.com, and I think case matters. So many berries recipes with capital M, capital B, capital R. So tinyurl.com/ so many berries recipes. So capital M, many, capital B, berries, capital R recipes. And Jane asks, are avocados fruit? Yes, they are fruit. But as cooks, I mean, there's a scientific definition, but most of us, at least I, prefer the culinary definition. So from a culinary point of view, a tomato is not a fruit, it's a vegetable. From a
Right.
culinary point of view, an avocado, I treat it as a vegetable. But tomato, tomato, or tomato, tomato, it's the same thing. Or, a rose by any other name smells as sweet. But if you want to be technical in terms of the scientific definition, avocados are a fruit. And then Jane's saying, I've only seen cherries growing here. There are tons of mangoes and avocados. I love Dominican mangoes. They're really, really good. They tend to be really large. And lately this year, guys, are you getting the most amazing cherries? They're big and just juicy. They've been on sale locally at our co-op. They've been so good. The cherries have been really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's a comment from Bonnie. Excellent. Yep, you're quite welcome. Any other final thoughts from any of us? I mean, what's the next
Yeah.
show? I'm tossing out the idea of maybe so many melons for the next show. We haven't decided yet. And Karen was asking me, didn't we already do so many melons? We're going to check and see if we've already done so many
Well, we
melons.
did. We did something with melons, but hey, Dilip, my brother texted a suggestion. So apparently he's watching. I didn't know that, but his suggestion about what to do with your pots and pans that you might need to get rid of because they had Teflon or whatever. He said check with your local recycling facility because you can recycle metal pans. That's a possibility. Depends on where you live, but check with your local recycling centers. So
let's make a mental note. Next show or show after, let's talk about what to do with all the meat and fish and stuff in your refrigerator if you're suddenly become a vegan. I mean, if you say I've been reading these things about veganism and I'm moving in that direction, that's one thing. Then you're probably going to use up your food. But what if you, like many of us, no more? I want to be vegan. What do you do? There's probably no one right answer. I think it'd be worth a discussion. So Cody, Karen, Suzanne, or Carolyn, any final words?
No, have fun. Have fun.
play with your food.
Thanks everybody for watching. We love doing these shows, and please post ideas for future shows. You can email one of us, Cody at SoManyCooks.com, Karen at SoManyCooks.com, so forth, or post on social media. Say, I watched your show and I have this new idea. Can you do, a show about avocados and pineapple? Or how about a tropical fruit show, guys? That would be good, guys and gals, or gals, right? That would be a good thing, right? Tropical fruits or something like that. You've just come back from Iceland, Carolyn. Maybe that has given you some new ideas of things to do, or maybe a show about. We've done a show for the kids about lunchboxes, right? So how about travel foods or something like that? So any ideas you have, please share with us. And there's one more comment that came in. Yeah, so Jane says, yes, let's do tropical fruits. Jane, I wonder if you're going to be in Dominican for a while in the Dominican Republic, or you're just visiting for a little while. It'll be fun to hear what you're doing there. I read some historical fiction about the Dominican Republic last summer. There was a lot. I felt embarrassed. My own hemisphere, I didn't know about some of the politics of the Dominican Republic in the late 50s, early 60s, and now I know a little bit. So. All right. So thanks, everybody. We look forward to seeing you in our August show. We have 2 dates in mind. We'll try to finalize that soon. It has to do with I'm teaching a Food for Life series, and the last date is up in the air. So once I figure out my class date, we'll set the last. I think it's either like the 22nd or 29th or something like that. Oh, here's another comment. Okay. So Jane is there on mission work for a month. So I hope you have a great time there and learn a lot about their culture and just have a good time and eat lots of great food. One of my very good friends is from Haiti, which is the other side of your island. So let me bring up our outro. Have a great rest of your July and August. Don't be too hot wherever you are in the world. if you're watching from down under. I just got an offer from a friend of mine in Australia who's been vegan longer than I have, and she wants some of my math stuff for kids, and I'm going to ship it to her. And she said, instead of sending you money for shipping, can I send you some wonderful vegan Australian treats? And I haven't answered her yet. But for those of you who may be watching from down under, so hope it's not too cold for you in the winter, and the rest of us hope it's not been too hot. It's been really, really hot in many places. Here it's in the 80s this today, 85 or something. But it's been in the mid to, in the 90s for a long time. So have a good rest of July and August, and see you guys in mid to late August. Bye.
Bye.
So many cooks in the kitchen, so many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen, with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen, with ideas we're happy to share.